Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming tonight. My name is Adam Moore. I am the Parks Development Coordinator at the City of Milwaukee. With me is Jennifer from Greenworks. Jennifer, do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Jennifer DeBanzo. With Greenworks, I'm project manager and a landscape architect and prime consultant on the project. And then we also have JLA with us, and they are community engagement consulting firm. And then we have ESO. Danielle is out at the table. So just to introduce the team.
Yeah, so tonight we are going to be talking about Balfour Park. If you're not familiar with the project, the city was awarded an ARPA grant. That's the American Recovery Plan Act, also known as COVID stimulus dollars. Those are federal funds that come to us through the state legislature. We have money for Scott Park, Bowman Bray Park, and Balfour Park, which we're going to be talking about tonight. There are surveys for all three of these parks on Engage Milwaukee right now. We're going to fill out here in person ones for Balfour Park, but we can answer any questions you have about the other parks later on. Our schedule for this evening has been a little bit disrupted beyond the technical difficulties that we had tonight. We were going to have a presentation by a city councilor. She unfortunately is not going to be able to join us. We're hoping to get a replacement, but we might not. So we might only have just the one park presentation this evening. So.
Okay, so I'll just go through the agenda really quickly and then we'll get on with this. So we just did a couple of introductions. We'll go through our project schedule. And then what we heard from August, we had a big event in August that some of you are at. I recognize some of you. We'll look at, like, based on that feedback, the revised master plan, and then go through our next steps. So next. So here's our project schedule. Here's where we are today. So Adam just went through a little bit of our grant funding efforts. And then in July, I guess it was July, not August, but July, we had a big event. And it was outside at Balfour Park. And then here we are today presenting the revised plan. And then in November, we're going to do another special meeting. It'll be online. It'll be November 19th. That'll come back to everybody with the revised plans.
November
16th. November 16th. And that'll be the revised plans based on tonight's meeting, and then the surveys that'll go through the 19th. And then after that will be a big approval through City Council on December 6th. And then after we go through approval, then the design team will get into more of the design details based on that preferred alternative or preferred design. That'll go through most of 2023, and then 2024 would be construction. And due to the ARPA dollars that Adam was talking about, it's like they have to be spent, and well, have to have ribbon cutting by the end of the fall of 2024. So that's why this project's on a pretty fast track. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Next. Okay, so in July, we had our park event at Balfour Park and online. So just to give you some numbers, we had about 172 people on the online that visited the online presentation, and then also 62 written, like people that signed into the park. There could have been more that didn't sign in. And then with everybody's comments, we collected about 120 comments. So that's what you'll see here tonight. So the first was, we were really looking at the existing master plan, and we were saying, what do you like about the existing master plan? And top features that came out were the nature play and the slide. So for folks on the screen, we will move on to, we'll show you that, but if you wanted to look at the ones that are over here to the on the left side of the room, that's the one on the left side. Sorry, so nature play and slide were like the big features, and native planting. So the biggest theme we were hearing was nature. We want to keep the trees. And also another theme that was coming out was picnic amenities, picnic area, shelter, picnic tables, benches. And challenges, some of the bigger challenges we were hearing, like most places, is parking. And then, other, we had a lot of people that were saying other, so what came out was like, we want bike racks, how do we deal with dog use, and then transportation safety.
We also had a lot of people who wrote in splash pad. That's coming up next. Get ahead of myself. There we go.
Yeah. So, yeah, so then we had, what do you want to see if we were to revise this plan? What are some other considerations we should take into? So what Adam was getting to is the top feature was the splash pad.
Well, it was close to the top. We heard splash pad, we heard preserve the trees.
Yeah.
We heard if we are gonna add trees, make sure that they are replacement fruit trees. Native plantings were big, picnic shelters, swing sets, and nature-based play. The thing with splash pads is, one, they are very big, and they often require a bathroom. Balfour Park is very small, and it has a very limited budget. Splash pads are very expensive. So a couple people wrote in on their survey, they were talking about the Happy Valley splash pad. Adjusted for inflation, that's a nearly $400,000 splash pad. We have a construction budget that's about half of, or twice as much as that. So a splash pad would take up half of that, and that doesn't include the amenities like a bathroom for people to change into. Now, you will see later on, and going back to the neighborhood plan that was put together before in CPRD, there was a water table in that plan, and we think that we are going to be able to add into this design a water table. So not a full splash pad, but it will be a water feature that we'll take a look at a little bit later.
Yeah, and just to let you know the difference between the two surveys. Yes.
Just wondering, under other, are all 32 of those requests splash pad, or are you saying splash pad is included in the 32 other requests?
There was about 22 requests for a splash pad in those others.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the reason why we have two surveys there is, one was like the online and written surveys, and then one was just online surveys. And the online survey had some features that the written survey didn't have, such as native plantings or nature play, which we had in the other survey.
Yeah, and the difference comes from, if you joined us at the open house at the park, we had the dot exercise where you could place the dots on the board. We can't do that online. So the online survey took in the things that we had the dot exercise for and put them into the survey. And so that's why there's a little bit of a difference there. But everyone online saw all of the same features that people saw in person.
And some of those other considerations were like protect the natural elements and keep the existing trees. Yep, next. So here we are looking at the master plan side by side. So just to show you some of the elements that we're looking at. So I'll start down on the bottom where this one has the community garden right up front. In our revised plan, we're moving the community garden. We've looked at it. There will be enough sunlight to capture, like to get into the community garden, but then adding in this picnic area, shelter. This is where the water table that Adam's talking about, we'll look at an image of it. This also, the city of Milwaukie likes to have concerts or movies. So you can set this up under here where then you can have some people that can be right up front. There's this hardscape area for ADA access, and then more lawn space. So you could have a bigger event. You need that.
And it is a little bit hard to see in the plan, but these white outlines, those are the canopies of the existing trees, and the black outlines that you see, those are the canopies of trees that we're proposing to add.
Yes. And so that was a big thing with this one, was we retained the 2 fruit trees that are in the park. We kind of overwhelmingly heard, we want to keep these trees, where in the original plan, those trees were removed and this was just an open space. I know some people will think about safety and visibility, so those trees will be limbed so you can see through the park and not that, you're gonna have this big forest that you're not gonna be able to see through.
Yeah, and just to let you know, we do have an arborist on the team. The city does, there is a public tree code, just like there is a private tree code. So we have to have a reason to cut down a tree, just like anybody would at a development or their residential property. We will be taking the advice of our arborist on staff. And our goal is to leave the trees as long as it's not a safety hazard, or as long as it doesn't look like the trimming that we would need to do would harm the tree to the extent where it would need to come out.
The question on the tree.
Yes,
So when the apples drop, they rot and they get extremely smelly.
yes.
Is that something that's gonna be cleaned up or?
So the question for those of you on Zoom is that fruit trees, like the apple tree in there, does drop the fruit. It can be smelly, it can attract different insects and other animals. Right now, the park is maintained by NCPRD, but it's in our agreement with NCPRD to only receive a minimal amount of maintenance. If you've been following along with what's going on with parks in the city, there's a question of whether or not we're going to stay in North Clackamas Parks and Rec, or we're going to take over parks ourselves. Either way, the amount of maintenance for this park will increase when it gets developed. And that is obviously a concern that we have with fruit trees is, hey, it's great to have a fruit tree. It's great to be able to have, folks who can go pick up an apple if they want it. There are nonprofit organizations that partner with a number of different municipalities and different parks where they have fruit trees. And that is something that we will be needing to do. We will look into that with our Parks and Rec board, as well as we have a tree board as well in the city. And so we're going to be working in tandem with that. So those are some of the things that we have to work out between now and the time of parks development. Lisa, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just want to have information about that.
Yes, please.
So typically that in the past would be laid by people who live inside, larger breeding populations, they would harvest apples. When NCPRD was taking care of them several times, they made it so the apples dropped before people could harvest them. They damaged the tree and cut off limbs, so all the apples dropped, so they couldn't get any, so they stopped. Because they kind of felt like they weren't supposed to. So it was kind of why you see the apples now, otherwise you couldn't see it.
For those of you on Zoom who might not have heard her, it sounds like there are some community groups who are interested in helping us pick up the apples. Maybe there wasn't the best coordination between the park district and those groups. And that is, again, something that we're just going to have to work on in the future.
And one other area that I want to point out, because I was talking about it with someone earlier, is if you can see up by the embankment slide, there's a bunch of boulders. And then in our current design, we don't have as many boulders. And the thing is that they're really expensive. So what you're looking at here, this embankment slide currently, that could be a $40,000 slide with a $10,000 slide with like $30,000 in boulders. So when this was designed, that would be like $100,000 of boulders. So we had to reduce the amount of boulders. It's still like the slide is there. It's still on a slope. There'll be plantings and other boulders and stuff. But just so if you're looking at that and you're wondering like, whoa, that's like, what happened to all these boulders? That's where that's why there's less there.
A couple other features about the park that I want to make sure I mention is you don't see Balfour Street in this design, but you will see it elsewhere. We are proposing right-of-way improvements with the park. However, the city has another project on Balfour Street. It's called Ardenwald South. It's another one of our Safe Streets projects. That is scheduled for design in fiscal year 2025. So they'll start doing the design July 2024, and then they'll do construction the next year. We're going to tie this project in with that. But what we are proposing is that there would be trees and a curb like you would normally see, as well as a drop-off area, which could double as a space for somebody with ADA access issues. They could pull off there. This could be a spot where we put in like a porta potty or a sink when you have your concerts in the park. But we're trying to figure out what you all want to see in front of the park in the right of way, and we're going to pass that on to our engineering team. The engineering team is working on finding ways to help people get safely across 32nd Street and get safely to the park. Also, the Hillside Manor development will be, when they go through their next round of development, connecting to 29th Street. And so those different sort of connections are things that we're keeping in mind here. You're just not going to see them constructed until they do the street.
And that's a good thing because it actually put more money back in this budget.
It saved us $200,000 on this project that we can put back into the park.
Yeah.
We had a comment come through on Zoom as well that
Okay.
says, also, so this is related to the fruit. The fruit should not be an issue if we start an adopt park.
Yep.
Thank you for that comment.
An adopt a park. And that was probably like through like a community garden coordination group or something. Because
Yeah, so-
that happens in other.
One of the things that the North Clackamas Parks and Rec District is doing right now is they are starting an adopt a park program. If the city does take over the management of its parks, we could look at doing something similar, or we could partner with an organization just specifically on the fruit trees. Couple other features that you see in the design is we've retained this large swale. We've added, it starts up here at the playground, comes down. We'll go under this path here and then all the way down to the street. And we've added in some rocks for people or kids to hop across from this picnic area here.
Yeah, like some stone steppers. And then also this water feature, you'll see like this will drain. It won't puddle in the picnic area. There'll be a drain area through there and it'll go into the stormwater feature.
And we'll take another look at that, but that is hand pump operated and it's like a trough that comes through at different levels. So if you are in a wheelchair or if you're very short, you can go in there and touch the water and play with the water. It will go all the way down to the end of the chute here. And then there's a gate that people can lift up and let the water splash down and then eventually drain into here.
And there's like, there'll also be like a change in material. So you'd have your flat concrete surface for the picnic area. And then like more of a like cobbly or like more exposed aggregate for the trough for the water.
Were there any other features that we wanted to point out?
I think, we still like, we still have our bike racks, park signage. Due to the slopes and stuff, there are walls that were still there.
So we've got two hands up. Yes.
What about the illumination by night?
Okay, so the question is, what about illumination by light? Do we plan on putting lights in the park? Lights in parks are kind of a topic of debate. On one hand, you have people who want to see lights in the park because they feel like that would make the park safer. On the other hand, you can often see when you add in lights in the park, especially if you have active amenities, that encourages people to go into the park when it's closed. So we are not considering adding in lights to this park because the park is supposed to be closed at dusk. Was there another?
There
question?
is, and
Yes, hi.
Hi. Who is gonna determine who's gonna be building the park, and will you guys be using union tradespeople?
So the city will be following our procurement guidelines. The city just redid its procurement guidelines to include a lot of equity standards. I'm pretty new to the city, so I'd have to get back to you on that, but if you want to shoot me an email, I can get you that information. Was there another question on Zoom?
nope.
One thing that I do want to mention is if you've been to the grocery store, or the gas station lately, you know that inflation is something very real. So we do have contingencies worked into this design. We do have some percentages worked in here for inflation. But we are also hearing some real struggles out there with people who are doing construction right now. We are doing our best to keep that in mind. But one of the reasons why we ask on the surveys to please rank your favorite features is because there is a potential that some of these features might not be able to be delivered. It is our hope that we can deliver all of it In fact, we spent a lot of time working on these 3 designs because we didn't want to show you a bunch of pretty pictures that we couldn't deliver. There's been a lot of that in Milwaukee over the past. We know that you all have been looking at a picture of a park at Balfour since 2015. So we did take a lot of care and we do feel comfortable that we can do it, but right now things are a little bit unturbulent. So I just want to make that clear. We will keep the neighborhood association and our Parks and Rec board and city council up to date as things change. But right now we are in budget with a good, healthy contingency.
Would you, on a contingency, would you, if you did run out of money, would you do this, construction so that you could add those features later?
So the question is, if we have, are you asking if we have more money left over later?
No, do a phased
Into
approach.
one thing later down the road.
Yeah, so yes, so there are 2 things that we can do. One, if we somehow wind up with more money, we can add features in. In the more likely scenario, when it comes to money, if we run into challenges with that, we could look at phasing in features later on. Those are decisions that we kind of make in the design process. Right now, we're in the conceptual planning phase. So, we have a good idea of like what materials these paths will be made out of, how thick they are, how wide they are. But those are details that we work out in the design phase. And that's when the costs really start to become a little bit more clear.
I have a really silly question.
No silly questions.
There's peacocks that live at this park.
There are.
Do you know what the peacocks
We do
are?
know
Are
about
they gonna be
peacocks.
okay with the?
So we did hear about that at the open house. In fact, we had a really good couple suggestions in the survey. One person suggested we rename the park Peacock. Oh, that was you. Okay. Thank you for that comment. Well, we will consider it. The other thing is that we did get some feedback from a young child who said that we should maybe have peacock themed playgrounds if we could. So our designer is kind of giggling a little bit. We'll see. But we are going to take care. We haven't selected the plants that we're going to be doing into this. This is things that we'll work out in design. But yeah, we know about them. Lisa.
It's just hard for me to tell, and I know you said that the light color on here is the trees that are staying, but I can't tell. One of my big pet peeves with the first master plan was that they took the Sitka spruce out of the middle of the park. And I can't tell if it's still there, but I really hope it is. That's a huge, a native tree. It's kind of
it's a
where the playground area
Is it right here? This one?
No, that's Douglas fir.
Okay.
There are 2 big Doug firs over
Right here.
and the western red, and then in the center where there's the, yeah, I can't tell if it's still there, but if someone could confirm for me that the Sitka spruce stays, I would love to know that.
We'll double check our tree map.
Do you know if it was taken out of this one?
It probably was.
They took. most
That
of
one
the
might be
trees
out.
Okay.
It might be right where the playground is.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm
Yeah.
like, that's a Sitka spruce.
Okay, let's take a look into that.
Yeah, okay.
Next slide. Okay,
You have that written down, right?
yes, I got it.
Okay, so this is mostly about your survey and Adam touched on this, and this is rank your preference. So we're asking people to rank in order what features they like the most. And what you'll see here is embankment slide, the swings, nature play, picnic area, water play, community gardens, and drinking fountain. And then that picture up in the top there,
We're looking at the
no,
fountain.
not the dog fountain, but yeah, that's more of like what Adam was talking about with the water table or water feature. And then these are the items that are going to be in the park, so that's either not in the ranking system. So we're gonna have trails, open lawn, benches, picnic tables, native plantings, bike racks, trash facilities. And then, I mean, we should have put in here those existing fruit trees that were taken out of the original master plan. But that's what you'll see on the survey and online. It's, you're just gonna tick along like what numbers you want to see. And I think it was 10 is the highest. I can't remember how we did it, but for one was
It's
the
the number.
highest. Okay, yeah.
Yep. So 1 is the highest ranking, and then I think
So
there's.
number 1 is
Yep,
here.
is what you
Top
want the
item,
most, and
yeah.
then the higher the number, the least it's ranked. Yes, ma'am.
The community gardens, how will they be maintained, obviously by community members, but who's going to facilitate that?
So that is going to depend on if we stay in North Clackamas Parks and Rec District or if the city is going to take over. I think in either situation, we would probably be looking for community partners to work with on that. While I'm thinking about the community garden, one of the reasons why this was added in and very important to people is because of Hillside Manor. Hillside Manor does have a community garden, a very nice one, well-maintained one at the back of their property that I got to tour when I visited that site. They do not have enough space right now for people. And so, we know that a lot of people in the neighborhood do have backyards, but we do have apartment dwellers who do not have access to that. And we do feel like there is demand. So that is something that we will have to work out as we get closer to the park being constructed.
Yes,
Another question
Sure.
about the playground area. Is that gonna be, what kind of
surfacing.
surfacing we're gonna do in the playground area?
Right now in the budget, we have it as engineered wood fiber chips. Yeah.
I was talking to a friend and they use sand.
So
Sand, I don't know if sand's accessible or if it's good for fall or impact.
Well,
it has a much lower impact.
Yeah.
They use it in places like Nebraska and Iowa and the Midwest, but they don't use it for the whole surface coverage, but they use it under areas where like at the end of a slide, there'll be sand or under a swing.
Yep.
there'll be sand.
Yep. And sometimes what you do underneath slides and swings also is those are high kick zones is you put in a mat. So the question for people on Zoom was the safety service for the playground. Right now, we're looking at engineered wood fiber, AKA wood chips. If you're curious about the differences in playground design, playground safety surfaces and their cost, we did do a presentation. It's available on the city's YouTube channel. It's also available on our website. So if you go to MilwaukeeOregon.gov/meetings and scroll down to the playground presentation, you'll be able to see that video there. The differences in cost, engineered wood fiber is about $3 a square foot. Whereas the more accessible options, which are like your poured in place or your rubberized tile, those can be anywhere between $20 and $30 a square foot installed, although they do have a lot less maintenance over time. So those are the trade-offs. How much do you want to pay up front? How much maintenance do you want to do? How accessible do you want to be? Engineered wood fiber does meet the bare minimums of ADA, although we do know that ADA is not always the best for all users, particularly people with any sort of mobility device that they're using.
Okay. Well, that's the last time.
This is what we ran into last time, so we're just gonna do this.
Okay. All right, so next steps. So today you all have food. You can grab some more sandwiches because we have a lot. And then filling out surveys, and then we're here to answer lots of questions. The online survey is online until through October 19th. And then, as we mentioned earlier, there's another special PARB meeting, online meeting on November 16th. That would be at 5:30. And that would be presenting the final plans. And then December 6th is city council meeting, which is not public, but.
It is public.
Oh, it is, okay.
Yep, so on December 6th, we will go, I think we're on a schedule for sometime around 7:30. I will present the plans to council. You all will have an opportunity to comment on it. It is not a public hearing, but we would love to hear your support. And then council will vote whether or not to make these the plans or not. As we mentioned, we have extremely tight deadlines on this project. December 6th is the day that we have to get these approved. We do not want to go into January for many reasons, because this is use it or lose it money, and we do not want to be giving any money back to the state at all. No offense to them, but we've been waiting for these parks for a long time, and we want to spend it here. Just a note on the surveys, if you're on Zoom, the surveys are on Engage Milwaukie. We will share a link in the chat very soon. They just shared a link for you all on Zoom. I will say that that's going to be up until the 19th. Please do encourage your friends and neighbors to fill those out. They'll see the same things that we have. And I did just get word that we will have another presentation in about 15 minutes. So you all here can fill out your surveys, you can ask questions, and then we'll have another presentation about the future of parks. You heard me mention several times, whether we stay or whether we go. We'll have Council President Kathy Heisey will be joining us and giving a presentation on that. We are going to be here till 7:45 regardless. So if you're hungry, you want a sandwich, come on down and join us.
And then is there any other questions?
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if this is as relevant now or later when you're doing like the nitty-gritty design, but you all talked about incorporating any kind of public art or
Very good question.
that kind of
Yeah.
more aesthetic.
Yeah, so the question was about public art. So the city does have a public art ordinance that requires us to put 1% of the project towards public art. The ordinance also has a very specific manner in which the public art has to be planned, which requires a specific committee to be formed. Yes, of course. It did not fit in with the planning schedule that we're doing here. And of course, we don't know the final cost of this project. So we are going to move forward with the park as it is and then work into public art as we go through the design process. But we do have to reserve 1% of this project to public art. And that is across all city projects. That's City Hall, that's the other parks that we're working on. It just didn't fit in with our planning process right now. Yes, Lisa?
Another question about the pathways, are those just
Do you wanna go?
cement walkways or what are they made out of?
Currently, in the estimate, we have them in as concrete.
The public art, how are they determining, I guess part of it's committee, but we're talking statues, murals,
Public art is up to
peacocks.
peacock statues, peacock habitat. Yeah, it really is up for interpretation. I can't remember the full ordinance off the top of my head, but a committee has to be formed that includes an artist or a landscape architect, members from the NDA, members from city council, project managers and project team. And then we all work together and present something to city council to make the final decision on that. We've got 3 parks and 3 neighborhoods and a very short period of time to do this. So we're not forgetting about the public art. It does feel, I will acknowledge, maybe a little bit weird to try to add it in later on, but that's what we have to do with this ARPA money to make sure that we get it all spent in time. Yes, sir.
This is the first time I've had any involvement in this, so I don't know if this might have been addressed at all, but.
Well, thank you for coming tonight.
Yeah, hey.
Yeah.
But I was wondering if there's been any consideration at all for a kind of even a single public restroom. I know that at least on like Google reviews for a number of the other parks that have play structures around, a lot of parents asked or said lament, wish there was a bathroom here.
Yes.
And we had discussed with the water featured part of the expense regarding being a bathroom. And I was just curious if that might be a part of why there isn't anything.
So public bathrooms are extremely expensive.
Sure.
And that is why you do not see one here in this design. You do bring up a very important point. So part of our planning process includes meetings and open houses, but we've also been doing a number of focus groups. We have heard throughout planning, whether it's open houses or focus groups, the importance of having bathrooms. So we are looking into the possibility of seasonal restrooms. That would be like a porta potty. There are ways that you can secure those so they can't be tipped over. We actually do have porta potties at Spring Park that do stay there, and we've had only minor issues with them. Although in other places, a porta potty or a public bathroom can be challenging for a number of reasons. We've even had challenges with that here when we did our open house in May and the porta potty didn't get picked up for a week. We had some problems with it. So we do not have a public bathroom in this park. We consider this Balfour Park, Bowman Bray, and Scott to be neighborhood parks. The idea is that people walk to it. But we do understand that, yes, a lot of people need a public bathroom. It's just the cost of those. I mean, a single building with running the pipage, $700,000, $800,000. That's our entire budget for construction here.
Fair enough.
Yeah. Yes, ma'am.
Out of curiosity, there's still a porta potty right now at Balfour Park. That's not the one you guys left.
It's not, I didn't leave it there. Mine got picked up. I learned my lesson on that, but we will look
For a
in.
long time.
It has.
Yeah.
Okay, I wouldn't.
Oh, it has that it's there. I'm just curious.
Oh, no, last time I went by, it wasn't there.
It's handicap.
It's still there, yeah.
Okay, well, we will find out who that belongs to. We'll get that picked up.
Thank you.
At different parks throughout the summer.
Yeah. Yeah, so
So it's possible someone requested that and see if they're any builder or someone.
Oh, this could be true.
yeah, so one of the things that you can do right now with the park district is the park district does have a number of porta potties. So if you're doing like a concert in the park, or when we did our open house, we filled out a permit, we could request a porta potty service be there. Sounds like that in the past, there has been some seasonal porta potties that have been used. But we'll look into that and we'll figure out where that belongs. Yes, ma'am.
Quick question.
Sure.
What about the possibility of a couple of composting toilets? And when I look at the picture, there's a black line around the play area. I'm correct in assuming in my note that that's a fence.
So the
No.
first question is, have we looked into a compost toilet? No, we haven't. The second question is, what is the large black line around the playground? And Jennifer's gonna answer that question.
That's a curb. It's a play curb, a curb, and then the chips. There's no fence around that one.
Yeah, so that one is far away from the street, and in the back of the park, so we don't have a fence designed in there. If you were to look at, say, the design right now for Bowman Bray Park, you will see some fencing around part of it. That's because we have a multi-use path that goes through the park, and we want to keep kids
And it's
out
closer
of
to
that.
the road.
And it's much closer to the road there. So it's, roads are a big, obviously, deal when you have kids playing. And so that's why we don't have a fence in here. We are looking at potentially some form of fencing along the frontage of the park and then these two entrances here.
We also have a comment online. So the peacocks will necessitate that the community gardens be fenced. They need everything. So maybe the fencing is a cool opportunity for art.
That is, I like that. I like that a lot,
Yeah,
actually.
fencing.
We do, I will mention that we do already in the design have fencing and a little gate around the community garden for several reasons. I did not consider the peacock, so thank you for that. So if you all here have your surveys, you should just take a minute to fill it out. No rush. We're here till 7:45.
Someone else had a question.
Will the park be potentially open to like booking it for like private events or rental space?
So yeah, right now you can rent the space right now to do events in them. And there are rules that govern that are controlled by NCPRD. That is one thing that the city would have to figure out if we were to manage the park ourselves. But so, you know, I filled out a park permit when we did our open house in the event. One of the reasons why we did open houses is not just because it helps get a lot of people there, but it lets us see as designers and as planners what the park looks like in action. It also forces us to go through a lot of the steps that others would have to go do. So it allows us to test things out. So for the example that I use a lot with this project is Scott Park, which is behind me right now. You know, we noticed when we did Scott Park, we did the open house there, that the plaza area and the flat grass right outside the children's library area here, that is wonderful for doing events, doing the Friends of the Library book sale and other things. It's great for programming. And so we learned that, hey, we need to leave it there. We also learned that we can do all sorts of activities in the amphitheater and what we need for that and what we can do also in the park while something's going on at the amphitheater. So that's another reason why we did the open house. And so to answer the very long answer to your question is yes, you can do public and private events in these parks, the rules of which are either governed by NCPRD or the city.
Any other questions? Yeah.
Sorry.
No worries.
That was great.
Regarding the square footage for community garden space.
Mhm.
Is that something that's been discussed or decided upon, or is that sort of more what's in the design theory that you discussed rather than concept right now?
That's concept right now. So,
Yeah, so obviously there are some
and also
considerations.
just, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. It was like, we have to consider like, where's the sunlight gonna be? There's a lot of shade in this park. And then also access. So if you're coming into the park with your chips, your soil or your plants or your tools or whatnot. Like you don't want to have like your community gardens way in the back.
Yeah, so that is an important question. We did see on one of the online comments that I had a chance to take a peek at earlier today, as someone was concerned about the community garden being close to the road. We actually see that as an advantage, as well as allowing us to fit in the water feature and the picnic tables and the shelter and moving it over here. And we do believe that we're going to get enough southern light to make that possible. Yeah, Lisa.
Actually, we have one point to point out.
Yes, please.
The community garden is, it's because the big, native, the red oak is there.
Mhm.
They like it dry, and they're gonna be people watering in the drip line underneath that tree. That's one comment I would make. That's so good.
Okay. Yep, that's something we'll have to consider.
That's really beautiful.
They
Yep.
have limited space, but
Yeah, and I think the amount of water for like as many community garden pits, it might not be as effective to the roots of the tree. Just depends if somebody's overwatering a ton on their
We might need to look at like some drainage underneath there to help move that
away.
away from the tree. Root protection is a big concern for us in this park as well.
Yeah.
So, you know, we were looking at, hey, where, if we are gonna do a water feature, where do we fit it in? And digging a trench and running electricity and water in this park is really, really difficult and would be really harmful to the trees. So that's another reason why we chose to put things here in the front, which pushes our community garden over a little bit more. The neighborhood association plan that was done in the past did have the community garden further up here. But I do believe that would have required moving some trees.
Yeah.
So we think it's gonna work in here. Obviously, this is conceptual. We've got an engineering team ready to go. And we'll take a closer look at all these finer points. But the one on the tree is important. We're just gonna take a short little break and then we're gonna have another presentation. We are here till 7:45, so please feel free to stick around. But we have Council President Heisey is gonna give another presentation here.
I'm Kathy Heisey, I'm your city council president, and I am here to talk to you about the future of Milwaukee City Parks. This is some, oh, slide. Do all the things, Jessica.
All done it.
And I think just advance to the next slide too.
Fantastic.
There we go. All right. So.
Oh, you're not. It's okay, it's me. You keep going.
So the way city council gets stuff done in the city is typically to establish goals, and we usually have 2 or 3 goals. And for the past several years, we've had equity, justice, and inclusion. And for even longer than that, we've had, yeah, if you could close that door, thank you. We've had climate action as a goal. And this September, we added a 3rd goal, which was improving Milwaukee's park system and services. And this topic is something that honestly we've been doing a whole lot of work on for quite a while now, but it really hit a critical point where we needed to make it a goal in order to have the conversations with the community around what do you want to see from your parks and what should we do next. And we also noticed that there's a really nice synergy between all 3 of these goals in that, next slide, we can really work on both climate change and equity and fulfilling those goals by talking about our parks and perhaps taking who manages the parks and who's building them and all of that back into the city instead of having it done by the Parks District. Next slide. So when we talk about how climate change and parks relate to one another, one of the biggest ways is trees. Trees is sort of the one place where we have an opportunity to do mitigation work around climate change, where we can actually absorb some of the carbon we need to pull out of the atmosphere. Parks are a great place to have high density of trees. We have a 40% tree canopy goal for the city of Milwaukee. So parks are going to be an important part of hitting that goal. And they're just really nice for when it's hot out and people want to be outside. You need that shade, and it reduces the overall heat effect of having all of the asphalt and other forms of pavement in the city. So that's one of the great things it does. And, you know, trees are great at pulling carbon out of the atmosphere. 1 acre of trees pulls out basically a year's worth of driving, which is pretty cool. Next slide. And we also know, and I'm guessing that a lot of you had the same experience I did during the pandemic, of desperately needing to move and to be outside. And parks are a great place for us to exercise both our minds and our bodies. And just having a park leads to more physical activity. So we know that as our community is growing and changing, and we're adding 1,500 more units of sorely needed housing to the downtown urban core in the next 3 years. We know that those people are going to need places to go outside and spend time together and all of that. Most of those are happening in multifamily developments, apartment complexes, so they aren't going to have backyards. So we really need to pay attention and making sure that we have these options for folks. And that's part of where the equity work comes in. We want to make sure that we aren't leaving behind portions of our community as we grow. Next slide. We also know, and we see this all the time when we have community events, that parks are, especially now, I think, more than ever, the place where we have our coming together. I don't know if you were at the Scott Park event out here in May, but to me, it felt like it was the first chance we all had kind of as we were coming out of the pandemic to spend time together as a community. And it was really fun to just be outside, feel safe, being in proximity to one another, to see kids playing. So parks are really a place where we strengthen our community ties, we get to know one another. If you've been to the concerts in the park series, it's been a long day, folks. That Ardenwald puts on and that Llewellyn put on, you know that those are terrific places to just see Milwaukee turn out. So we love that that is a place where we see those things happen. and where diverse populations can really come together in the community. Next slide. So those are our 3 goals: climate, equity, inclusion, parks. But we don't actually control our funding sources for Milwaukee's parks right now. We've been a member of the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District since 1990. And that district serves Milwaukie, and it serves a big swath of unincorporated Clackamas County, sort of south down to Jennings Lodge, and it goes over to I-205. That's a very rough estimate of the boundaries, but it gives you an idea. It's much bigger than just Milwaukie proper. And that Parks District is funded by a fee that is paid by every property owner in the district. And that money is meant specifically for, maintaining parks, building parks, all of those sorts of things. And that money should be paying to help for keeping up with this growth in our population, we feel anyway. And it should also be there for other jurisdictions that district is serving. We all want parks to be built. This isn't us versus them by any stretch. That hasn't been the case. Just getting so good. I don't even need to say it. Oh God, that's right. I forget about this. These slides. Do I actually stand in front of them? Am I blocking this? Yeah, you're good. I'm short enough. So the problem we have with NCPRD is that the folks who actually make the decisions about where the money is spent is it's actually the county commissioners. It's not an independent board. They just put on different hats, and they serve as the board of directors for the North Clackamas Parks and Recreation District. None of them live in Milwaukie. They don't have a vested interest in making sure that we're keeping up with our parks programs here, or in making sure that parks are being built close to where we have dense development coming in. Despite the fact that we don't have control over that funding, we still managed to do a ton here. We have 16 parks in Milwaukie. A lot of that is because we have managed to kind of, despite the Parks District in many ways, keep investing in and building out our park system here. And we are different from the rest of the Parks District in that we own the land that our parks exist on. If you've been here for a while, you might remember that in 2018 or so, 2019, Happy Valley tried to leave and was successful in leaving the Parks District. They left because they were dissatisfied with the service they were getting from the district. They were very different from us in that they did not own their parks property. So it's a much more complicated departure. It was a big mess. It was in the papers all the time. This is a little different. So despite all of those barriers that we've had in the city, we've seen how important our parks are to our community, all of the reasons we've already mentioned. So we have continued to do the work to really find funding sources to make things happen. We're really good at getting grant money to come in. We've got some great grant writers on staff, and we've even spent some of our general fund dollars. That was interesting. It's a new building. It's fine. We'll be fine.
Big raccoon.
Really big raccoon. So we can take a little bit of money and use it to leverage much bigger outcomes. And we also have great relationships. The reason we're getting to build out Balfour Park is because we had Representative Power and Senator Taylor who looked at our track record. They were concerned about equity and they wanted to make a difference in the community. And they said, all right, we're going to give you the money. We know you can get this project done. We're not so sure that NCPRD can get it done on the timeline that it needs to happen. So next slide. Without the county being involved at all, we designed and built a bunch of our local parks. We're at the presentation for one of them right now. Bowman Bray, Scott, Homewood, Ball Michelle, the first phase of Spring Park, which is that top area when you're going down to Elk Rock Island. The first two phases of Milwaukie Bay Park, so that was the parking lots and the dock and the concrete walkway work. And then the Kronberg Park path, I don't know if you've been over there or not, but when you go over underneath the Max line, kind of along Kellogg Lake, that's what we're talking about. There's that really cool, it's actually won architectural awards path that kind of winds through the treetops over there. So that's work that we've done that's above, beyond, and outside of the scope of what the city has really been tasked with doing. It's work that honestly we would kind of expect the Parks District to be doing. Next slide. So when I talk about this, I want to be really clear that I'm not dissing NCPRD staff in any way, shape, or form. The folks who work for NCPRD are wonderful people. They do incredible things with limited resources. We have good working relationships with staff. This is not where the issue has been. This is really a political issue, and that's why you're getting me talking about it instead of staff folks talking about it. It's my responsibility, honestly, not staff. But I want to be really clear about that because a lot of people know and love NCPRD staff in this community, and they should, because they have served us very well. And we really appreciate all the work they've done. All that said, we think we can do this. We think we can do this better if we have parks come back to the city. And we feel that way because we know our community. You're all sitting right here. We have a pretty good track record for doing outreach and education and engaging the community in the projects we've been doing. I'm not sure what presentation number is this on Balfour? Third, okay.
Or, yeah,
Second, third.
Confusing because it's
Okay. Right, it's all a blur. So, you know, we want people to be a part of building these parks as we do it. And we feel like we can also be a little more responsive and move faster. We've been working on fully building Milwaukie Bay Park for over 25 years now. It was a dream that started long ago. There have been people who've dedicated their, substantial portions of their lives to getting that done. We had it all planned out, and it has just kind of sat at the county commission board. And it's honestly been turned into political football at this point. And it's frustrating because you all know what inflation looks like right now. And we've seen the project costs just skyrocket as it sits there not being built. We expected it to be built years ago. And we just, a few weeks ago, received word yet again that there was another 90-day delay on moving ahead with Milwaukie Bay Park. And seriously, at this point, every day is just, you just hear ka-ching, 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 which means we won't be able to afford to build as much of the park as we initially should have been able to. And that's just a disappointing truth. And we feel like we have the track record. That was a long list of parks. We actually do know how to do parks work, even though we don't have a parks department here. So that's where we're coming from on it. And we also feel like we have recreation programming experience. You all have probably, if not, you may not have gone to Carefree Sunday this year because it was really stinking hot, but you may have been to the umbrella parade. You may have been to the solstice events. We do all sorts of fun stuff. So we know kind of where the community is at and what they want to see in their recreation experiences. You look like you had a question.
I was just curious who has been taking care of our parks since we don't really have any kind of official parks department.
Yeah, it's the Parks District. So they are charged with doing the maintenance work.
So while Milwaukie proper owns the property and purchases parks outside of parks or the county's parks department purview, they still take care of these parks while we craft them.
And they are the ones who receive the tax dollars that support the maintenance of the parks. Yeah.
Sure, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So
it's a confusing relationship.
I can understand.
Yeah. No, it's a really good question. Yeah.
So the North Lagoons Park and Rec District is supported by property tax dollars?
It is, yeah. So that Parks District, it's like the fire district. It's like the fire district. So you just have an annual, if you're a property owner, you pay X amount of money. For the Parks District, it is 54 cents per $1,000 assessed value of the property
Ours is the lowest
in the state.
everywhere.
Yeah, it's very low. Yeah. Yeah, Elvis.
Would, do you know if you're departing from North Classic Parks, if they're gonna charge you for anything? I mean, there's the land you have, so they won't charge you for that, but is there any other cost that they would charge? Get reimbursement for?
This is one of the things that we're still working out, and we're actually in the courts right now. And that's part of why it was like a hot minute that we were talking about putting this on the ballot in November. And we actually withdrew it before we got that far, because we realized that we weren't going to be through the courts process far enough to be able to be clear on the ballot about what we were asking voters to really do. So the short answer is the departure, no matter how we did it, would involve some sort of negotiation process with NCPRD over, assets and who's keeping what and what responsibilities. And we have things that NCPRD wants, and they have things that we want. We would like to keep having in-district cost levels for the pool, for example. A lot of people rely on that pool to give their kids swim lessons, and they don't want to pay a higher price.
We own the Milwaukie Center, right?
We own the Milwaukie Center.
So if they want to be able to use that, that's a good negotiation.
Right. And the ball fields actually are a huge draw as well. That's something that NCPRD uses a ton. So those are both examples of places where we'll just have to work it out. And it's frustrating because I would love to have a more concrete answer, but we have heard that the community really cares about that. So I think part of what we would have to do is, if for some reason negotiation breaks down, we would have to figure out where else to find those services for the community. And it turns out there actually is a pool in town in Milwaukie called Swim Babes that absolutely nobody knows about, but there we go. It's real. You're the first person I've encountered. Thank you for telling me that. Like, I see it on the Google map, but I've driven past it. I've just never, it's very well hidden. Anyway, so that's, there is a ton of work that would go into this. Don't get me wrong. There's a lot that we would have to figure out. Negotiations will be very important. I don't want to sugarcoat any of that, but that's what I can tell you right now.
Slide?
Yes. So we also just kind of look at this and go, if we don't have to deal with the board of NCPRD, AKA the county commission, that's a whole level of bureaucracy that just doesn't come into play. Milwaukie Bay Park is the place where we've seen it be the most costly and painful for the community and for us. But there are other places where it's just complicated. Like, it's a complicated relationship. Lisa can speak to what it's like to be on the Parks and Recreation Board of Milwaukie, but not actually have a parks department. It's what do you do?
We would like some recreation. We would like to do something in this park. And we were told, again, well, wait, we're gonna do, it never happened. I'm like, we're just gonna go walk around the park. Everybody come meet us. That's our recreation.
Right, yes.
That's what we do.
Mhm. And we have a terrific Parks and Recreation Board in Milwaukie. There's no shortage of energy and excitement and volunteerism that would love to go into supporting our Parks Department if we had one. But right now that complicated relationship just makes it hard. And having the Parks Department be something that is in Milwaukie means that you and I have these conversations and we have more direct input. PARB can actually be a place where people go to have input that is heard around what do we want to see happening in our parks. And we also feel like, given our ongoing record of being able to maximize our investments that we do make in our parks, that we can really make a good difference in running our parks if we were to do that. So, last slide. What happens next? We're going to be doing presentations like this. There's a brand spanking new, as in it just went live at a little after 6 yesterday. It still needs a little tweaking, but ourmilwaukeeparks.com is where you can go for a calendar of events. Thank you. He's passing the basket, folks. If you'd like to hear this presentation again, you can come and do that. It's also recorded online because I did this last Thursday with the Scott Park presentation.
It's on the city's YouTube.
It's on the city's YouTube. This will be on the city's YouTube. We're hitting all of the neighborhood association meetings this month. We'll have a big meeting next month. Do you know the date for that, Adam? Off the top of your head?
November 10th.
Thank you.
We'll do a town hall
Yeah.
here at the library. It's on the city website now, so Milwaukie Oregon /meetings are where you can find the details.
Great.
Some of them are still being worked out.
Yeah. And we want to have a conversation. You know, obviously I'm trying to persuade you tonight, but I do want to hear what your questions are, your concerns, all of that, because that's important. We have not made a decision about this yet. We aren't going to do this if we don't have the community support for doing it. There's 0 point to it. So please stay engaged. Please let us know how you feel. The question about money is probably the one that's on everyone's mind. What we would do, basically the process looks right now like we're working things out in the court to see what our departure path, our legal departure path looks like. Once we know what that is, we can go back to you all and say, okay, we think this is how we can get out. Right now, we're hoping that it will be something really simple, like city council just has to make the vote. We would not vote to leave the district until we knew we had funding to run a parks department. So that would involve a vote in the spring on the ballot, probably in May. Maybe we would do a special election in March. And that would be an opportunity to just say, okay, you're paying 54 cents per thousand assessed value. That's going to NCPRD right now. What we'd like you to do is pay that same amount and have it go to the city instead. We're not looking to raise rates. We just had a presentation from city staff last week at a council meeting that you can also watch on YouTube about what that budget would look like. We can do it. And the thing that I was really excited to see is right now, under NCPRD's management, we have about $940,000 in deferred maintenance on equipment in our parks. And that's things like playground equipment that's past the point of its natural life, picnic tables that need to be replaced, those sorts of things. And the city budget, estimate shows that we actually could start chipping away at that. So it includes starting, it's a slow catch up, but starting to catch up on that deferred maintenance backlog as well. So I think that's it.
Could you talk a little bit about the master planning process?
Oh.
Maybe come after
Yes.
we have the funding worked out?
Thank you.
That's the next paragraph there.
Not that you're. Of course not, yes. It's like Adam's dream to run this master planning process. So the other thing that we haven't seen much of from NCPRD is a master planning process. And a master planning process is kind of like what we've done with Balfour Park and the other two parks that we're building right now, only on a grander scale. It's looking at our whole park system and looking at what are our needs now. And that work hasn't been done for a very long time. And we're a different community now than we were the last time that work was done. So it's an opportunity to check in about all sorts of things. I'm excited about the master planning process because I love Elk Rock Island. And it's a natural area that it's just running into some real collisions between different types of use that are happening there. master planning process is an opportunity to talk about what do we want to see in this park? How do we want to take care of the natural area? Is there something we need to do to meet the use needs of these other folks who are coming to the park? How do we make that all work together? So a master planning process is kind of how you get there. And we would start that process, I think we would start it after running the ballot measure, right? Like if
There would kind of be a twofold process.
Okay.
So, if you're familiar with the way parks and improvements are usually paid for in Oregon, they rely on SDC, service development charges. So growth is supposed to pay for growth. So what we would need to do is, if we do decide to leave the park district, we would put together an interim park plan and capital improvement plan, just so that we could start collecting those fees from development. And then we would start probably a 1.5 to 2 year-long process where we would work out a full-blown 5-year master plan. And then calculate, are we gonna have a skate park? Are we gonna have a splash pad? Are we gonna have a pool? What do these different parks cost? Are we gonna buy more land? What sort of additional programming or administration do we think we need, or future equipment that we need? What is the price tag on that? And then maybe we come out to all of you, we ask for an additional levy, we ask for a bond measure, but there would be kind of a twofold process, something really quick to say, hey, let's start collecting those fees so we can do the things that we already know we want, that are in that capital improvement plan, that are in that repair plan, and then work with all of you to build a system-wide, citywide plan. So like we heard a lot about, hey, Balfour Park isn't the best place for a splash pad. Where is a good place for a splash pad? How do we make that happen? Well, Milwaukie Bay Park, there is one in the construction documents, and I'll let Council President Isaac talk a little bit about Milwaukie Bay Park.
And thank you for that. I always forget about talking about SDCs, but SDCs are another piece of this puzzle from kind of the political football perspective. We used to have, like $26,000 or so was what we were getting in SDCs as recently as I think 2015. But you've seen how much growth we're having. We're going from that to getting millions of dollars in system development charges, which is a good thing. That's how it's supposed to work, right? You have greater density, you have system development charges to build out the system to support the needs of those folks. Unfortunately, where NCPRD seems to be heading is, instead of the current system where the expectation is system development charges are used in proximity to where they are generated, they are looking at pooling all of the resources. And there would be no guarantee of where that money would be spent and whether or not those parks would get built in Milwaukie where the money is being generated, or if they would get built somewhere in the outer reaches.
And the people making those decisions are people who are county commissioners overseeing a much larger county, as opposed to people who
Right.
live and work right here.
Right.
So
so it becomes challenging to contemplate that happening right as we know we need them.
That goes back to your equity statement.
Right.
Because it's not equitable to create density in an area and not have green space for those people when you create that density. Got it?
Yeah.
Keep it even. And
Absolutely.
That's gonna throw everything off.
Yeah, and to be perfectly clear about this, we're not putting a fence around any of our parks. We're not going to start charging admission. These are amenities that serve everyone in the region. If you've ever been to an event at Milwaukie Bay Park, you know that people are coming there from all over, and it's great. I mean, we want to share those sorts of things with the broader region. So I just want to highlight that because it's really easy for this to, there are narratives out there around this being us versus them, Milwaukie versus the unincorporated area. That's really not it. There is no desire to keep anyone out of our parks. We just want to make sure that the parks are being built where the greatest need is. So yeah, you had a question.
So at the risk of sounding like I might be asking
us versus them.
I mean, it seems like some of y'all at least are familiar with and in contact with folks who work within the county parks district. What is your impression on their perception towards this idea? I mean, as you noted, it would probably be a distinct loss of income if these, you know, the greater population of Milwaukee left their purview, because then the tax would be going elsewhere. But like at the same time, if they don't have to be administering all that care, like then the other millions would be the month. But I'm just curious, like what the general temperature is within the county on that.
I think the answer is complex and nuanced, and to any county, you know, to any NCPRD employee who's listening, I hope they take this with a grain of salt when I say that I am cautious about speaking for them. My sense is they love Milwaukee, you know, and they want to continue to be involved in our community. So I think for NCPRD staff, this is very hard. When you get to the county leadership, it is where you hear more of that us versus them rhetoric. And it's coming out of one particular commissioner most frequently, but that's where we keep finding kind of this hang up. And it becomes a conversation about parks are not being built in NCPRD, and that it, you know, or in the unincorporated area of NCPRD. And honestly, I agree, parks aren't being built out there, but that has nothing to do with whether or not parks get built in Milwaukee. That's about how the Board of County Commissioners is choosing to run their parks. They don't have a great record for getting parks built. That's part of why Milwaukee as a city has taken the lead on doing that, because it just, I don't know what happens. It just kind of spins out. So there's a lot of frustration in the unincorporated part of the district, because they think there are some people who see that Milwaukee keeps building parks and they go, where's ours? And they don't understand.
They're doing the extra work.
Exactly. They don't see that we have invested millions of dollars, invested tons of staff time, and gone above and beyond in order to make that happen.
So if I could just add a few things as a staff level person working on these parks, just mention two things. One is that our relationship with the NCPRD staff is very good.
Yeah.
They are very professional. We are trying to be very professional as well. So up until they put the pause on Milwaukee Bay Park, we, the city staff and NCPRD, were still working together on that. Next Wednesday, we have a Parks and Rec Board member meeting. You'll see our contact from NCPRD. Their planning and development manager comes to our monthly meetings still, even though this discussion is going on. And we say at those meetings all the time that it is not about NCPRD staff, but it is about the decisions that are being made above hand that they do not have control over. The other thing that I will mention, and this is not about the staff, but Balfour Park, Bowman Gray Park, right? Those were planned out 7 years ago. Scott Park has been in NCPRD's capital improvement plan to get a new master plan for 3 years. Stanley Park has been in the capital improvement plan since 2018. You know, how long have we been waiting to finish Milwaukee Bay Park? There are a lot of projects that have been sitting there waiting to be done. And we know that our colleagues at NCPRD want to see those parks finished. We know that they want to see these parks finished because we're working with them on this as much as we can. But because of where, you know, who they respond to, they are a little bit stuck.
Yeah, and I'll just say to your comment about you know, shrinking the tax base effectively. We make up only about 20% of the district at this point in time. I don't know what our percentage was back in 1990 when we first formed the district, but I know it was different. We were a bigger portion of it. You've seen explosive growth in that unincorporated area over the past 30 years. So when I look at that number and I go 20%, you know, I think they're going to be fine. You know, I don't think we're going to destroy NCPRD's ability to have the income that they need to do their work. And it may actually help to just not have this tiresome narrative of us versus them always kind of pulling at things.
They can all focus all their energy and resources
Right.
on.
Right, yeah.
I mean, I just was, as I noted earlier, literally, well, first time meeting. So just curious. Like,
Yeah,
it does strike me that at least most of the people who are probably working on the parks would like to have more work on the parks be worked on.
Right.
And so like, hey, you know, a reasonable sales pitch then to be that the city of Milwaukee has its own parks department that ministers to its own parks, then 20% of the whatever is now freed up to be put towards not the city of Milwaukee.
Yeah, I think that's true.
So just to give you some idea, like, so we have about 20% of the population, we have about 14% of the land. Of course, we do have the Milwaukie Community Center as well. So, you know, you will hear people talk about, you know, how parks are divvied up, and they like to talk about the number of parks. Not all parks are equal. We do only have about 14% of the land.
Yeah, we have
Just
lots
to
of,
add some factual
Yeah.
context to some of the things.
we have more pocket parks.
And what other cities are part of NC?
You're looking at it, you're in it.
So Milwaukee, Happy Valley pulled out.
Yep.
And then the rest is just unincorporated?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
And we originally partnered with the unincorporated area to create the Parks District in 1990. And it was an economies of scale thing. You know, at the time, we were a smaller city. We went, okay, maybe we can do a better job of this if we kind of go in together. And it has worked well for a long time. It's really just kind of been as this political tension thing has shown up. And as we've gotten farther down the road and we keep seeing parks not getting built by the district, that we've kind of said, we need to check in with the community. Are we still getting what we want? Because we're starting to feel like maybe we aren't, because we're spending a lot of time in frustrating meetings with the Board of County Commissioners. We know staff are sinking a lot of time into just trying to get projects done. So we need to share that that's what's going on with the community and kind of do a gut check on where are we at. Yeah.
You said at the very beginning, this is a completely different question. At the very beginning, the goal is 40% tree cover. Do you know where we are right now?
26.
Yeah, we do have some good maps, and the goal is 40% per parcel and then 20% as a city as a whole. And so we have done that analysis.
And we're at 26 and 20. So over halfway there.
Yeah.
I think I saw a lot of trees being cut down before the
Yeah.
tree cover. They were mature trees too. Yeah, that's true. But
100 up in Ardmont and 100 off King Road.
I saw a
Yeah.
bunch go down in Harvey Street in the apartment complex.
Mhm.
And they're redoing the whole complex, but
Yeah.
I think there was some of that.
And that tension between preserving the tree canopy while we are building is a very real one. And our tree code that we launched this year is an experiment. You know, we tried to figure out how to do it so that we gave developers the flexibility they need to keep mature trees and still build the stuff that we need built. Whether or not it's working or working well, or if there's things that we need to change, that's another community meeting.
Just to do a plug, Arbor Day in Milwaukee.
Yes.
Is on the 22nd, so come on down. We're going to be right up front of City Hall. Come grab some free trees. And we're going to be partnering with Friends of Trees again and planting trees all over the city as part of our climate action goals at this meeting. Our tree goals. What's that? You do not need to RSVP. You do need to RSVP if you want a tree in your yard. I don't know very much about that, but Natalie Rogers, in our climate and natural resources division can talk to you more about that. Come on down on the 22nd. We'll be painting pumpkins and giving away trees.
And there will be an Ask an Arborist booth if you've got questions about your trees. I'm doing it, and there's a all electric PTE demo house, like a tiny house that's all electric. So it's a cool opportunity to learn about just some of the new technologies out there.
We'll also be doing a tool exchange. So if you have like an old gas powered leaf blower and you'd like to get a credit to turn it in for an electric one, you could do that at Arbor Day.
But you do have to RSVP for that.
You do have to RSVP for that, yes. I do want to just point out, we've got about 5 more minutes left in this room and we do need to start backing up, but we all are available. If you have questions about Balfour Park or Bowman Gray or Scott Park, reach out to me. If you got questions about the future of parks, reach out to our city council.
Yep.
And
We're all happy.
November for that town hall.
Yeah. And check out the website too. Yeah. Thanks all for listening. Thank you for running the slides again. I'm going to try and miss the third one, no offense.
I get it.
It's me, not you.
Question for you. Yeah. So we love this one down. Right over here. That on the left side. He's one of the guys that every time I walk, right on this like ramp. It's just like a scaling all over.